Hello everybody, thank you for watching. My name is John Lockery and I'm one of the inventors of Democracy, the board game. What I'm going to do is give you a bit of a demonstration on how our game works. So the first thing I'll do is open it. You can see it's all nicely shrink wrapped. Perhaps a bit too well if anything. Here we go. And we open it up. In there and give you a good look at the box and the back of the box, which shows the board and what you can expect inside and a brief on the game itself. So then when we open the box itself, what we have inside are votes. In Democracy you play for votes, so we have a whole range of votes there. We have the just standard playing pawn for your playing pieces, 6 different colours because there's 6 players in the game, and then we have the blocks for developing regions in the game, which we'll go through in a bit. And then lastly, or not lastly, but next we have the cards that come with the game, which we'll open in a second and look at, and then we have a set of the rules in the box there. And lastly, at the bottom of the box we have the board, and this is the Democracy board game board. So we'll open it right out. As you can see, I've set the game up for a simulation, just to demonstrate how the game is played. These are the rules. It's A5 double-sided, fairly straightforward, not many of them as you can see, so hopefully you should find it quite easy to get into the game quite quickly. Now, just to explain to you what's happening on the board at the minute. The board is made up of the 5 continents of the world. You've got the Americas over here, you've got Africa here, this is Australasia, Asia and Europe, so the 5 continents of the world. But also at the board is, up here at the top corner, is the dictator. So there are 6 players in the game, and within each continent then there are 6 facilities, so 6 areas to take control of. You have agriculture, military, transport, health, housing and education. Each continent has the same 6 facilities, and each of these facilities has a card attached to it. You can see that this is African transport, which is over here. The goal of the game for the players as they play is to take control of the continents as they land on them. Now, in order to take control of a continent, you must use up your votes, and each player will start the game with a number of votes. The number of votes that each player must start the game with is determined in the rules. The dictator, being a dictator, starts off with more power than anyone else in the game. So the dictator starts off with more votes than anyone else. And that is also determined by the rules. How many more votes the dictator has than the delegates is determined by how many delegates are sitting at the table playing the game. While the game is being played, the votes come and go from the electoral register, and that is where the votes are kept during the game. The only time the votes are not kept in the electoral register is when they're placed in the ballot box, which is here on the board. And votes are placed there if a player loses votes as a result of picking up a card. How these votes are then removed from a ballot box is determined if someone lands here on the polling station. Once landing here on the polling station, the player who lands there has the right to take whatever votes are in the ballot box at that time. The cards in the middle of the board are picked up when a player lands on one of the squares that match that card. You can see around the board you've got social stability, you've got the economy, you've got climate change, you've got civil unrest, you've got human rights. The colours correspond to the colour of the player. You have yellow blocks for the yellow player, who is Africa. You have red blocks for the red playing piece, which is the Americas. You have blue blocks and blue playing piece for the Australasia, and so forth, which correspond roughly to the card colours as well. So the game is colour coordinated as best as could possibly be achieved. As the player plays the game and takes a move and lands on a facility, if that facility is not controlled by anyone and the card still remains available, that player can take control of that facility by using their votes. All the cards say how many votes is required to take control of a facility. In this case, it's the military of Australasia, and it requires 1,500 votes to take control. Once gaining control, but not in the same playing move, in the next playing move, a player has the right to develop that facility by placing blocks on the facility. Again, the card determines how many votes must be used to develop the facility. When landing on one of the facilities during the game, a delegate can gain votes. The number of votes is also determined on the card for that facility. This is where the game is slightly different from other games. If any of the delegates for any of the 5 continents control a facility, and any of the other delegates, including themselves, land on that facility, they gain the number of votes on the card. However, if the facility is controlled by the dictator, then any delegate landing on a facility controlled by the dictator will lose the number of votes stated on the card. This applies the other way. If the dictator lands on a facility which is controlled by a delegate, the dictator will lose votes. If the dictator lands on a facility that is controlled by the dictator will gain votes. All votes during the course of the game, other than those lost as a result of playing a card, come and go from the electoral register. Here in the dictator's zone of the board, the dictator has a military draft square and a detention center square. These cannot be taken control of by anyone. These remain in the zone of the dictator. Any player landing on the military draft square must forfeit all votes gained during the next 2 plays to the dictator. If the dictator lands on the military draft square, there are no consequences. Should that player happen to lose votes during the next 2 plays, they still lose those votes. All delegates landing in the detention centre must lose 2 plays in the game, unless they either have a freedom card, which they have picked up somewhere along the way, or if they roll a double score in the dice. Throughout the game, the dictator also has more opportunities to play the game. This means that the dictator must take a turn in between each of the delegates' turn. A player cannot continue in the game once they have run out of votes. Each delegate begins the game with 1 crisis card. If they are running out of votes, they can play the crisis card and exchange facilities and developments in return for votes. They can only do this once. Once they have run out of votes, they must leave the game. The dictator, on the other hand, has 5 crisis cards, which he or she can play at any time during the game. The game ends when one player controls all or the majority of the board and has eliminated the other players. This can be the dictator, who has taken control of the board and eliminated the delegates, or it can be one or a number of the delegates who have worked together to eliminate the dictator. Therefore, the game ends when the dictator either wins the game or the dictator is defeated by one or all of the delegates. Thank you for watching and listening. Democracy can be bought at our website, which is democracyboardgame.com. You can buy Democracy on our Facebook page, which is, if you search Facebook for Democracy the Board Game, you will find it. We have a shop there. And of course, Democracy can also be bought on eBay. If you search eBay for Democracy the Board Game, you should find us there.